Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Rob, and this is not Justin.
No, it is not.
This is actually one of our newest colleagues here at European Watch Company. This is Emerson. Thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here, Rob.
Justin was not able to make it in today, so I asked Emerson to step in and help me out here as we look at our final day of Watches and Wonders. So I really appreciate you joining us. I hope you got to see the other 3 episodes we've done because we had a lot of fun and a lot of spirited discussion about the new releases. And today we are going to be looking at Ulysse Nardin, Grand Seiko, PANERAI, Jaeger, and then we're going to do a short little recap of the week and some of our thoughts there. Before we get into all that, I'd like to remind you all while you're here on our YouTube channel to please like and subscribe. And if you hit the little bell icon next to the subscribe button, you will be notified for when we go live. And as I've been mentioning all week, we are in the midst of redesigning, retooling our studio, and we are really looking forward to coming back with the Horological Happy Hour. So stay tuned for that as well. So before we get into our current discussion for today, since this is your first chance on the show, I wanted you to have a moment to kind of talk about what you've seen so far and what you think of the new releases.
Well, first off, happy to be here. I actually have watched the live show for a number of years. I remember when it first started, and oh, hold on here.
Turn your volume down.
Yeah, there you go. Get that off. I don't actually have to watch anymore. I'm just right here. But I remember when we started, and it was just a phone and a table, and we've come a long way. So I'm really happy to see it get to this stage. As for the new releases, I think what I like to see is a lot of actually new models and new stuff beyond color changes for dials, because last year was pretty quiet. Of course, there are some hot pieces and hot takes that go along with them, mainly the Land Dweller and other interesting design choices. But overall, I really liked what I've seen.
Nice.
I think there are fun colors, new patents being made, and smaller case sizes, which I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you do enjoy Rolex, and you didn't get to participate yesterday. So what are your thoughts on the Land Dweller?
I'm a fan.
I'm a
fan. I'm a fan of the oyster quartz.
I saw you posted on your Instagram. You posted a nice sharp oyster quartz that you had, I guess, what, 5 or 6 years ago?
Well, actually, that was a 1530. That was a date, automatic date, reference 1530. That was one of the prototypes for the oyster quartz, where it was the
with the mechanical movement,
the automatic movement, the dial from an old Rolex date, like 15200, and then a little chapter ring that actually closes the gap.
That's a rare watch.
It is a rare watch.
That's not something we see very often. I've seen the two-tone with the mechanical movement, but the all-steel mechanical has eluded us here at the store.
Yeah, they're rare. I don't know how many were made. Back in whenever it was, 2019, when I had it, they really weren't worth a whole lot of money. I'm interested to see what the market does now that there's sort of a modern interpretation of it.
That's an interesting thought. Are we going to be paying more for oyster quartz now that the Land Dweller is bringing that back into the conversation?
I don't know. I love the oyster quartz, but I would be surprised if they all of a sudden double in price. Yeah, I think the Land Dweller offers more than what the oyster quartz offers with the new movement technology and precious metals. I think, for me, just a quick recap of the Land Dweller. I don't understand the name.
No, me neither. Yesterday I said the one big mistake they made was that there was no two-tone, because I think that watch in two-tone is. Don't make that face at me. That watch in two-tone is going to be fabulous. You have to admit, how that watch two-tone black dial. Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But the other mistake they made is the name. I don't get it, but
yeah, I think it was Michael upstairs who was saying we're all land dwellers. We all are on land. Not all of us are sea dwellers or even sky dwellers or space dwellers, but all of us are here on the ground for the most part, unless you're a sailor. So that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I also don't love the 6 and 9 numerals.
Really?
But my favorite one.
He says wearing an Explorer.
Well, that's all the numerals. That's different. That's different. That's not just two.
It's one more
numerals.
It's one more.
Whatever.
All right, we should move on.
We should, yeah.
But that was fun. So today we had Kate Bazemore in Geneva, and she had meetings with the brands I just mentioned, with Ulysse, Grand Seiko, PANERAI, JLC. So why don't we take a quick look at what she got to see in Geneva this afternoon.
Good morning again from Geneva. I'm Kate Bazemore. I'm going to be with you again today for day 4 of Watches and Wonders.
So not brands that are at the front of everybody's discussion, but I think some very interesting releases and some stuff that's definitely worth talking about.
I think there's stuff that should be front page.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely.
Well, when we get there, I'm very excited to hear what you think should be that headline news.
I will.
Top of the
I
fold,
will get
right?
there. I will not hold back.
All right. Ira Wolf asked what we are drinking. This is actually a fabulous glass of Blanton's that was generously given to us by a very good customer and friend. So you know who you are. We thank you very much. It is fabulous. And yes, it would be a good color for a watch strap. I agree.
Cognac color.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Ulysse Nardin. And their release this year was the Diver Air. And this is another one of those that to me is really interesting because they have now created the world's lightest dive watch. And I am not a diver, but I'm forced to ask the question of, do divers worry about weight?
I don't know. I'm not a diver either. My first thought when I read this was, when you're underwater, I feel like there's a tendency to kind of, your arms kind of float a little bit. And how much of the weight of a watch or, other dive gear do you really feel? I don't know.
Like it's cool that they did it, but is it practical within the application of a dive watch? I'd think you'd want that solid gold sea dweller so that it helps you get to the bottom faster.
Yeah,
right?
that would certainly get you to the bottom. I don't know how many people are diving with that one.
So this one, we have a skeletonized dial. We have a carbon fiber and titanium case. It's 44 millimeters, and it weighs only 52 grams. If you remove the strap, we're looking at 46 grams. That's what? 4 eggs or something? That's nothing. That's we're talking like racing bike light with these kind of things, which is where you would care about that weight aspect. So I don't know. I find it really interesting. I think it's very cool. I don't know if marketing it as the world's lightest diver made sense, because I think it's just very cool as an ultralight, skeletonized, super high-tech watch. My biggest problem is the price.
Yeah.
We didn't write this down wrong, right? This is $38,000.
Well, so that's on the other side of that. So where does the gold Sea Dweller come in at price? That's what I'm wondering. I don't remember.
That's 50 something?
Still more. But
that's expensive.
It is. But if I'm buying a dive watch, and again, I don't dive. I don't know what are important factors. I don't know if I would rather be sunk to the bottom or float up to the top. But that is a lot of money. Although you kind of have to pay up to be the world's blank at blank. So I'm wondering what the customer is going to be like.
Yeah, I think like with most dive watches, the customer who gets that will not be diving with it. I'm sure that somebody like Jason Heaton will get that thing strapped to his wrist and probably dive with it for Hodinkee or something.
Someone will do a dive test.
Which would be very cool. I wonder about legibility underwater with a skeleton dial. But again, I'm kind of talking against myself because I am the least practical person when it comes to watches. I really have no time for practicality. I think watches should be things of beauty. And whether you dive with it or not, whether you're exploring with an Explorer or whether you're flying with a pilot's watch, who cares? If I like the aesthetic, I like it. And I do like the aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, well, we all know you don't even set your watches, so
Exactly.
there's that issue. But yeah, it's an interesting release. The brand
right.
doesn't get a whole lot of attention these days, I feel like, or at least not up north. Maybe down south in Florida, you tend to see them on more wrists. But yeah, it is innovative. You have to give them that.
Yeah, and I think that was it for them. So we are going to move on to Grand Seiko. And they had some interesting releases this year. I was actually, when I was doing the research for this and looking up the specs and stuff, I was actually pretty impressed with some of the things that they have done, because I feel like it very much fits their brand and like the narrative that they're on, you know, for what they do as a company and trying to set themselves apart from, you know, be it Rolex or whoever they're going to be compared to. I don't really know who I would compare Grand Seiko to.
I don't really think there is a direct competitor. I think, at least when I think of Grand Seiko and what they offer and what they are continuously working at and trying to offer the consumer, it is mechanical, I guess just ingenuity, really, and they do put a lot of effort into their engineering, and the spring drive is just a very easy example.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
And then dials with very romantic backstories.
So why don't we pull up our first watch here, which is the Heritage Purple Kiri, which is, like you said, romantic backstory. And this is based on a flower that the official flower of the Iwate Prefecture. And they did a Mount Iwate watch as well, right?
That sounds familiar.
That's based on that. They take a lot of inspiration from the natural beauty of Japan, and I think they do convey that really nicely in their dials. This is another one where, you know, this color appeals to me. I love this purpley pink kind of color. It looks like it's going to be really dynamic and change shades depending upon the light and stuff. And it is an absolute stunner. I was actually kind of surprised because I was looking at the specs for this, and this is not a spring drive. This is not a high beat. There's nothing remarkable about the caliber. So this is a purely, like, you buy this watch because you love the dial.
Is this a manual wind piece?
Ooh, I forgot to look.
I know they make some of these with manual wind, and I think that's an interesting choice. And it lets the dial be completely sterile, which I like, and doesn't have a power reserve, doesn't have anything cluttering it really, so you get the full effect of the color.
It is a manual. Yeah, right. It's kind of nice that they didn't put like with the Snowflake where you have the power reserve on there. They don't have a date on there. It's very much, this watch is about the dial.
I'm all for it. I love the lavender kind of color. That seems to be another common trend this year. There's always like a trending color or two every year, and I feel like lavender is or purple is making a comeback.
There's been a lot of pinks and purples. Yeah, a lot of pinks and purples. People, our good friend Wineset Ware talking about Moser and Chapek. Are you saying that those are the brands you would compare Grand Seiko to? Because that I could kind of see, right? Because Moser is also a company all about the dial, with some of the best dials at the show this year, if I do say so myself. And Chapek as well have done, they've done a couple of stone dials. They did those, what do they call them?
So like a celestial?
Yeah, but they call it like I can't remember what it is. It's like the Galaxy or the Galactic or something like that. And those are very cool looking too.
Yeah.
I really like those. So that kind of makes sense to me. I was surprised to see that's a 36 millimeter watch.
Yeah.
The Grand Seiko Kiri.
Yeah.
So that is very, very cool as well, because the classic like Datejust size like that, best format.
I think more brands are also leaning towards kind of unisex pieces or watches that are designed in that small size, but also maybe even a bit of the color influencing like unisex appeal, especially in Japan. They like smaller watches, but even in the US now, I feel like we're getting a lot of unisex watches.
Oh yeah, I think I've talked about this in other episodes where I think the brands are getting smarter and they're not labeling things as men's or ladies.
Or slapping diamonds on everything for ladies.
They're just offering different sizes, and you can choose which size works best for you, because I have plenty of customers who have bought 37 mil APs even when they were being marketed as ladies' watches, who have bought mid-size Pateks when they were marketed as ladies' watches, and we're seeing that wording change. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because one size does not fit all.
No, absolutely right.
Industry.
Absolutely.
So moving forward again, we have the ever so cleverly named SLBG001, and SLBG003. How can you forget that?
I don't know. I mean, there's always more of them.
So these I found were really interesting because these, you'll see the UFA at the bottom of the dial. That stands for ultra fine accuracy. And these are the most accurate watches that Grand Seiko have ever produced, with an accuracy rating of plus or minus 20 seconds per year. Wow. Which is bananas. Because when we talk about chronometer certified specifications, that's +6 -2 per day, per day, +6 to -2 per day. And these guys are talking about plus or minus 20 seconds per year, which if you figure out the percentage of accuracy that is insanely small, 0.0000000 something percent. Why don't you talk a little bit about the spring drive?
Okay. Well, and also, just like part of my ignorance on these, but are these a new lineup, or are these just new dials of this? Because I've never heard of the UFA.
This movement is brand new.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is a brand new complication from Grand Seiko.
Yeah, that's really impressive. And I don't actually know the accuracy specs that Grand Seiko quote for the spring drive, but this sounds like it's spring drive level accuracy, but on like a yearly basis metric where they do that for the 9F quartz movement.
Right. Well, and part of the reason I think they're able to attain that is because of the hybrid nature of this movement.
Yeah.
So the spring drive is half quartz, half mechanical. It is a mechanical wind, but it is a quartz oscillator. So when you look at the case back, and there were some really good images of that case back as it rolled through our B-roll there, you'll see that there is no hairspring on this watch. There's no wheel that's moving back and forth on this. And that's because you have a quartz oscillator that is regulating this movement, and then you'll have a flywheel in the back that's continuously spinning, which is transferring that energy to the seconds hand, and you get the smoothest sweep of a seconds hand of any mechanical watch I've ever seen. Yeah. The great question being, is this a mechanical watch?
I think it's a mechanical hybrid. I mean, the crazy thing when you look at those spring drive movements is that oscillating wheel. I think that's what it's called, right? Instead of a hairspring oscillating wheel. And it is spinning so fast. And I'm just impressed that you're able to power like a semi-mechanical thing with just the winding rotor and have such a seemingly like high energy thing operating, because to spin that so fast and to have such a smooth drive of the hands, and those hands are heavy and it takes a lot of torque, it's very impressive. The
tolerance of the parts in the movement, the like precision with which they must have to manufacture that stuff must be absolutely incredible. Because the beat rate is just, there is no beat rate. You put it on a testing machine, it won't read anything because there's nothing in there. Yeah. And so what actually ends up happening is instead of that, you have this beat rate that's basically just bzzz, and that's that wheel you see constantly spinning. Right. And it's really technologically incredible, in my opinion.
My other question is, how do they quality control these? Like, what are they doing to test them? Are they just running the watches for like weeks on end? Like, how do you calculate this per year deviance?
That must be some high-level math, right?
That's too much math.
And I guarantee you that it's going to uphold that. It's not like they're offering this spec and then it's not going to be there. Like, I have no doubts that this is going to be as good as they say it is. Yeah. Without doubt.
For sure.
I think the price for the stainless is pretty reasonable.
What's the stainless price?
The stainless is $10,900. Now, the one on the strap with the slightly darker dial, they've listed both of these as being like an ice blue dial, but they've mentioned that the platinum is a little bit darker. So the one on the strap is cased in platinum, and you go from $10,900 for the stainless to $39,000 for the platinum on a strap.
Yeah, that's where I have the problem. I love the movement, I love the dials, especially at like 10,000 and 10,000 and under for most of their other stuff. But once you start getting into the higher end, or the precious metal Grand Seikos, they're following the margin kind of markup of the Swiss brands, but I feel like they haven't quite gotten a hold of a way to distinguish their precious metal watches from a steel counterpart. They almost look too similar to me.
So you have an issue with the fact that, like, if you're wearing that watch, you don't, because the dial's only slightly darker blue, nobody's going to be like, whoa, that's the platinum.
And not that I care what other people think, but to have a watch that looks just like the one that is $30,000 less expensive, am I going to feel that on my wrist, or am I going to try to be like reminding myself why I spent so much more money on that one?
Oh, okay. I like that take. I can appreciate that, because I think, you know, when you start talking about $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, a watch does have to grab you. There has to be that, like, man, that's my watch, right? It's got to pull you in and make you really want it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like that. So let's move to something that's going to do that.
Oh, gosh.
Let's move on to the Seiko Masterpiece Collection. This is the first time that Seiko has ever done a pave in a watch. They have presented this in a limited edition of 8 pieces. It starts as a platinum case, but then it looks like most of that platinum is removed to make room for the over 600 diamonds that are set all around this watch. And then I was also reading the baguettes on the inner chapter ring there are so precisely set that they actually do line up with the hour and then the minute markers as well. So you can use the baguette diamonds to make sure that you are telling time accurately, since it is a spring drive, and it will have amazing accuracy to boot.
That is very Grand Seiko. To make such a, you know, it's an ostentatious watch to begin with, and most people who are buying pave diamond set watches, and I'm not one of them, I'm just trying to speculate here. If I were to own that watch, I probably have other watches, and when I'm wearing this, I really don't care about exactly what time it is. I feel like it's party time. It's not like, am I late for my meeting? Am I on time for my doctor's appointment? That's not what's going on here. This is like, I don't know where you even go when you wear this watch, but.
Right, it definitely does not need to be accurate, but the fact that it is makes it all that more like Japanese. And
it is, yeah.
in the essence of Grand Seiko. And I find it really funny that they've released like the most Grand Seiko in terms of saying this is ultra fine accuracy. This is 20 seconds one way or the other per year. And then everything else about it is very sedate. Even the platinum one is very sedate, very subdued.
Yeah.
And then they're like, here is the craziest watch we've ever made with a manual wind spring drive, 8 pieces only, and a retail price of $320,000.
Yeah, that's insane. But of course, all you have to do is find 8 people to buy it, and they probably have already done that.
I bet they're sold.
Yeah,
I agree.
Surely you're under, you know, double figures, or sorry, you're under double digits for amount of pieces out there. So like if you have one, you're in a special club, and you can afford to spend $300,000. But I think this is like, it's like a 2-sided flex for Grand Seiko. You have the technical flex, and then you just have the bling flex.
Yeah. And I mean, the attention to detail that they give to everything else, I can only imagine that the quality of the stones and the quality of the setting is going to be absolutely fantastic. The one thing I could not find out that is bothering me is I don't know what the dial is in the middle, what the black center of that is, because it looks like it has some texture, and I thought maybe it was going to be a stone or something else, but I can't find anywhere what that center of the dial is. So I'm very curious to know, is that just a standard black dial with some texture on it, or did they do something there, you know, that's interesting? I'm guessing it's probably not so interesting if they haven't mentioned it, but
maybe not.
It's a good looking watch.
It almost looks like a black meteor.
That would be cool.
That would be cool.
But if they did that, they would tell you.
Maybe it's a
so
coal.
It's got to be.
Maybe it's just coal.
It's a piece of coal.
Yeah.
Carbon dial.
Carbon dial. Carbon fiber dial. Yeah. Go with
So, not bad time-wise. All right, we're gonna move on to my favorite brand, and we're gonna talk PANERAI. Though I have to admit, it's not my favorite year for PANERAI, because they haven't really brought out anything that's like, whoa, that's new and cool and interesting. But they've done some really nice updates that I think make sense. So we have the refresh of the Luminor Marina collection. And the Luminor Marina is taking that Luminor case, in this case, in what we call the mini fitty style, where it's not that blocky, all polished case. This has a mix of brushed and polished finishes. It has a little bit more contour to it. And then the Marina pieces are almost always automatic, and we have a date instead of the 3 there at the 3 o'clock position. But other than that, a fairly standard Luminor, very PANERAI in the dial style, the standard crown guard. What they've done here that I think is going to make a lot of PANERAI people happy is that they have improved the water resistance, moving it up to 500 meters, but they've also shrunk the thickness by 12%. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds nice on paper, and then you read that it's still 13.7 millimeters thick, and I guess you expect that from PANERAI, but yeah, we'll take it.
13.7, isn't that crazy though?
No, I guess
mean,
it's
if
not
you're looking at like a Patek 5204, that's 14 mil thick.
That is
That's
not even,
thicker than
that does
this.
not make any sense to compare that to. I understand Justin's frustration already.
What do you mean?
This guy makes no sense.
That's a thick watch. And
Yeah.
like 5370, like there are lots of like super heavy drool-worthy Pateks that get fairly chunky.
Because they stack on grand comp over grand comp. It's
Yeah.
not just a...
They don't have 500 meters water resistance.
No.
So
You don't
there you
need
go.
that. You
But
just sit in a chair.
to make the water resistance go up and the case thickness go down, to me is really good. Because
Yeah.
the one complaint many people have with PANERAI is not the diameter, because the diameters actually wear really well, especially since the lugs aren't super long. They're not going to overhang even if you have a small wrist. But the thickness sometimes becomes hard to wear because it makes the watch feel really chunky. So the fact that these have been slimmed down, makes them a lot more wearable. We have stainless steel and titanium options, including a stainless steel bracelet that actually I like the new style bracelets. I like how they echo the old style bracelets, but they're more refined. These 3 you see in front of you now are all stainless with the blue, black, and the white. And then they did the titanium with the green dial, which is definitely the nicest looking one. And that one's also, I think it said it was like 44% lighter if you did the titanium over the steel, which in a 44 millimeter watch is nice. Most people appreciate that.
Yeah.
Pretty standard PANERAI pricing, $8,800 for the stainless steel and $9,700 if you want either the titanium or the bracelet model.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you say it's standard and reasonable, I'm all for it. I'll be honest, I haven't even looked at PANERAI's site until this week in quite some time, but I do appreciate the slimming things down.
See, I'm glad that you're here because now I finally have our wonderful audience on my side. Wineset Wear saying 13.6 is svelte. Grant saying when you got a 44 millimeter watch, 13 mil thick is proportional. And Grant also saying those are like Zeitwerk date dimensions. Zeitwerk date isn't that complicated.
I mean, I wasn't talking about Zeitwerk. I would never call that a slim.
It's tremendously complicated. I have to eat my words on that one. Zeitwerks are incredibly complicated watches. But they did the same thing with that. They made it more complicated and they actually made it smaller. So
Another illogical comparison.
the watch market is irrational from start to finish.
That's
so
true.
Why should this show be any different?
It's certainly not.
There you go.
Yeah.
And now for the ridiculous PANERAI release. Not ridiculous, but the one that is their bigger watch that they released. This is the 1575. And this is a follow-up that they did to a similar perpetual calendar that had a gold case in it. So this, you look at this and it's very funny because obviously we've had the Longa Lumens that have predated it. And then we had that Patek retrograde perpetual that we discussed last night, also with a smoked sapphire dial. And now we have PANERAI coming out with a blue tinted sapphire dial, perpetual calendar, GMT, in a platinum alloy case.
This one is kind of interesting to me, and it's one of those trends. I guess you could call it a trend with this sort of translucent or lumen-esque kind of dials this year, or maybe even the last couple of years. And I didn't really expect it, but I'm all for it. Really, I think it works on this kind of a watch. Platinum, at least from my understanding, is pretty reserved for like the very special pieces from
It's
PANERAI.
not platinum though. It's like
Oh, it's not? Oh, it's a platinum alloy?
tech or something. And it's a platinum alloy that they're claiming is harder than standard 950 platinum. And I think the idea behind that is making a watch that wears a little bit better, is a little bit more resistant to like scratches and daily marks and things like that. So it's not 950 platinum, which to me is very interesting because I wonder if people are going to look at that and say, wow, this is a technological advance where I appreciate that the watch is harder wearing now, or are they going to say this isn't real platinum? Because the other thing that came to my mind was palladium.
Yeah.
And you don't see many palladium watches because palladium is murder to work with. I know Moser made a few, and that's the only one I can think of whoever did a palladium watch.
I mean, I know platinum isn't exactly a breeze to finish either, but yeah, that is interesting. I don't know what they are changing in the alloy to the point where they can't call it full platinum.
Right. It's not because it's not 950. It's not 95% pure, so they can't call it 950 platinum. I don't know. It's a question I'm not sure how I would answer that, to be honest, because it's like, is a blended Scotch as good as a single malt Scotch?
I don't know.
Well,
we haven't gotten a price yet, but I would say $67,000. It doesn't actually sting too bad for me.
Yeah?
Like I would rather spend that than $10,000, say, or $9,700 on the titanium.
Wow.
Yeah, I think this is a little more interesting. And it's probably, if you're going to get a record from this, it's probably world's heaviest perpetual calendar.
I don't know. We've had some pretty heavy watches. Yeah. If they put it on a bracelet, maybe we'd get
platinum alloy
but
bracelet.
It's definitely it is 44 mil, so it's not going to be light. Also, the other interesting thing here is when they did the gold one, they limited it to 33 pieces. This is not limited.
Really?
They're calling it a limited annual production, but it is not like a numbered LE. It's not like out of 50 or out of 33 or whatever it is.
So this is in line with more of like old school PANERAI, right? Where they would just produce things in serial and then stop when they felt like it?
Well, so what PANERAI did is if you have a PANERAI, you look on the back, it'll always say like XXX out of, 1,000 or out of 1,500 or out of 2,000. But what happens is that every year they would produce a different number of watches. So maybe one year it was like out of 1,500, the next year it was out of 2,000, the next year it was out of whatever. And it was an unchanged reference, like with the 111, 112. You saw this every year. And those watches were made for, the better part 20 years or something like that. I don't even know.
Sure.
They made those things forever till they started moving towards all of the 3-day and then the 8-day things. So an interesting watch, probably not where I would go if I was looking to buy a new PANERAI right now, because to me, $67,600 for a PANERAI it's not what I think of. I never go, and Wineset Wear actually mentioned that a wise man once told me that he doesn't look to the PAMs for a complicated watch, and I don't.
No.
To me, a PANERAI should be more like the ones we spoke about earlier, where it's big, it's basic, it's simple, and it's that design language that you either love or you hate. That's what I love about that brand.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think maybe I just went for the anti-PANERAI, just out of spite.
Somebody had to do it. Somebody actually said, Justin's not here because he's boycotting PANERAI, which is possible.
That's possible. We can't confirm nor deny that, so.
You're going to Glomar him? Okay, so now we move on to Jaeger, which I think for me is going to be the highlight of the day because I have always been a sucker for a Reverso.
Yes.
I miss mine dearly. I traded it away when I did the 3940. And I will one day have another Reverso again. It's a watch that I think is still absolutely fabulous. And I was really happy to see what they did this year.
I was very impressed.
Do you want to start us off with these Tribute Monoface and tell us a little bit about these?
So the one in gold, I think they're calling it the Ore Deco, right? And I think I was really kind of surprised by this one. Maybe I shouldn't have been because of the geezer watch galore that has been the last couple of years with all of these integrated gold or just precious metal bracelet watches from the 70s mainly. And all of these different brands have like come out of the dark depths of the internet to resurface and on the people's wrists, and they get a lot of attention. But I think this is Jaeger's response to that in a way.
That's really interesting. So you're saying that Jaeger is looking at like social media and forums and trends and seeing people going back to the old school mesh and like those almost jewelry bracelet watches, right? Because it's not a standard watch bracelet. Like this Jaeger's probably different, but back in the day, you needed a jeweler to size those because they had to actually cut them and re-weld the clasp back on in the new shorter position.
Yeah.
So you think they're looking at that and saying, all right, let's bring it back.
Maybe. I think in general, maybe I'm alone, but I don't think I am. I think a lot of people feel that so many Swiss brands are just so ignorant to what people are actually wanting from them. Some brands like Tudor, I think they're on the point. But I think JLC is one of those brands who's actually trying to offer a lot from their new stuff. And a lot of brands are just kind of going away from their...
Really?
Yeah, I kind of think so.
Hold on, you can't say that and then not extrapolate.
I think Vacheron has redeemed themselves a little bit this year with their Grand Comp releases, but I think aesthetically they've kind of gone away from their original, like, beautiful designs from like the 1940s.
It's worth mentioning that, Emerson, you are a very big fan of vintage watches.
I am vintage biased.
And you have owned many, many nice examples of vintage watches, probably from, I know you've had APs, you've had Pateks, you've probably had Vacherons, I would imagine.
Yep.
Like from the 50s. And the 60s.
From the 30s.
From the 30s? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate them a little bit more than the average. But anyways, on this release, I was really happy to see they did a bracelet like that from new. It's pretty bold of them. I wonder how well it will sell.
I think they're going to sell a lot of those.
Yeah.
I think they're going to sell a lot of those because I think that is a strikingly beautiful watch and a very cool way to say, you know, there are some older Reversos that had bracelets on them that are less good, to put it politely. Like, I never understood some of the older Reversos with bracelets. They just didn't feel cohesive. It felt like they were like, hey, we make Reversos, guys like bracelets, let's put a bracelet on it, and they slapped a bracelet on it. This feels like they thought about what fits this Art Deco super elegant, super classy, super refined watch, and they went for this gold, like old school. It's not really a mesh style. It's almost like...
It's Milanese.
It's Milanese. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is so stunning. And the fact that they went rose gold case, rose gold dial, rose gold bracelet like that, monochromatic, it looks so sharp.
You know what I just thought of is maybe this could also be a little bit of a response to what we've seen from Cartier, which has been on fire, I think, with their releases and looking back to their vintage models. The Tank Normal on the bracelet is kind of like, you know, sort of a similar sort of thing.
I like that. I do see a correlation there. Absolutely. Yeah. Normal on the bracelet is also absolutely fabulous. So my only problem is $41,000.
Why is that a problem?
Because that's for a manual single-face Reverso.
It's full gold bracelet.
Yeah, but if you look at the upcharge from steel to gold, that feels too much to me. That feels too much to me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Do you know where the Tank Normal sits? Yellow gold on a bracelet?
I don't know what the
It's not
retail
cheap.
is. Yeah.
I don't think it's cheap. I don't think it's cheaper than that. And I think you get a much nicer movement and probably better build quality with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
better build quality than Cartier?
Yeah.
For real? Dude, Cartier's hardware is like the best. It's so solid. Oh, I'm going to tell Justin that you have
listen, I love Cartier.
disparaged
I love Cartier.
his favorite French jewelry brand.
But, you know, I think the movements are where JLC likes to shine. Cartier has never really been in it for that. They're a design brand. And I think it's actually a discussion that we have in the office quite a lot, I think, is if you're going with a time-only sort of rectangular or square watch, would you go Reverso, would you go Tank, or another Cartier model? And everyone has their own opinions, but I think, you know, they're both great, really.
Yes. I mean, like you say, there's different different approaches to watchmaking from each of those two brands. And I think you can definitely appreciate both in the same breath. But it's just an interesting point of view you've got there. That's all I'm going to say. That's it. So now we're going to move on to the Reverso Tribute Duo Face. Small seconds. We have a black and blue dial, and these are just like subtle refinements on the current Tribute Duo Face. We've never had this black and silver combination before. We have had the blue and white, but it's been different finishes on the dial. I find it interesting that they have completely abandoned the guilloche on these watches, and they've gone for these smooth metallic finishes on the dial, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, I do think the guilloche is a really nice touch. Maybe they're saving it for their higher end pieces as prices continue to climb on everything retail. So maybe that's what they're doing. Or they're just trying something new. I think these, they're probably not going to get a whole lot of press and attention. I certainly haven't seen much on them, but I bet they're going to be popular. I bet people will buy these, especially the black.
Yeah, I mean, the black is slick, right? Like, if you're looking for a tuxedo watch and you had that black dial like that, that'd be really slick.
And it's kind of sporty.
The price is good, $13,700. I feel like that's kind of where things like this sit now. It makes sense within the other brands they compete with and other things you'd be looking at. I don't like a round seconds hand on a square watch.
A round seconds hand?
It's round. Oh, sorry, the seconds dial. Not the hand.
Oh, the sub
but
dial?
The sub-seconds.
On which side? The front or the back or both?
The front.
Oh, okay.
The back is fine because you have this round with the sunray. But on the front, you have a rectangle watch and you have a circle seconds.
I didn't even really notice that. But it doesn't really offend me, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's starting, you know what? It's starting to offend me. Now that you pointed it out. Thank you.
Bothers
you ruined
me.
it. You ruined it. Not that I was going to go buy one, but I never thought of that.
There's a couple watches like that where when you see somebody points something out to you and you're like, oh, my favorite one being, and I got to stop going on tangents because we've only got 20 minutes left, but my favorite one being the Patek 5140 and the typeface thing with the squash 27. Have you seen that yet?
You know, I'm not a fan of the 5140 anyways.
It's a weird proportion. It kind of sits in the middle of the 3940 and the 5320 set. And I feel like those two.
Except all of the fonts are wrong on the 5140.
They made weird choices.
Yeah.
They made weird choices.
They're cheaper for
plenty
a reason.
of people are fine with it, and I'm just like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well.
All right. Let's burn through the rest of these reversos so that we can get to our recap. This has gone much longer than I thought it would.
Yeah. Same for me.
I was worried we weren't going to have enough material. So, the Reverso Tribute Geographic. This is cool, but there's that round seconds again.
Whatever.
What are you doing? Whatever. I need to be more like Emerson.
The reverse side's where it's at for this.
Yes, you buy this watch for that world time on the back. And this is kind of cool because you're getting your time and your date with a big date complication at 12 o'clock, which is really interesting from Jaeger. And then on the back, you get your world time with that beautiful map and you get all 24 time zones.
Hand lacquered globe too. In steel, 21,000. I feel like you're getting a ton of craftsmanship. I mean, it's a steel watch at 21, but still, like, if you think about, or at least for me, when I think about a world time with a really pretty globe, with any sort of fancy finishing, I'm starting to think of like Cloisonné, Patek, and this, obviously isn't that, but you get that sense of craftsmanship at a fraction of that price.
And lacquer is one of those things where when you look at a stock photo like this, it doesn't really come through, but when you have it in real life, it has that like liquidy, shiny depth that really moves it a notch or two up from where you think it's going to be. So these are the kind of watches when you're looking at those photos, it never does them justice. And then when you see like good live photos in natural light, or you see something where it moves, then you start to really see how dynamic those lacquered finishes can be, and they become really beautiful. I really like that. $35K for the rose gold is getting a little pricey, but maybe with where the price of gold is, that's just what it is these days, and we just got to deal with that. But
I think, all right, well, if we're talking about prices and stuff, and this is not on a bracelet per se, but this versus that one of the Milanese bracelet, time only, for more money, this feels like a really good deal.
You're getting more watch here.
I mean, you're probably missing out on $5K worth of gold just in that bracelet, but they're not really charging you for the world time.
Right, right. You could almost look at it as they're not charging you for the complication and the movement, which obviously there's a lot that went into that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That rose gold on a bracelet, though, I wonder if you could, I don't know if you could swap it. Probably not, but imagine that on a bracelet. That would be killer.
Ira Wolf's with you on the fonts, and me.
Good.
Too many fonts on a dial just kill the watch for me.
And the wrong size, and just don't mess with the 3940. That's it.
All right, next up, Reverso Minute Repeater.
This might be my favorite release.
This is your favorite.
Possibly.
Do tell.
Possibly.
Do tell.
Have you seen it? The front of the dial, first off, that color is perfect, sort of blue-green mixture, beautiful with the gold. But you get this classic hand guilloche, like very old school style of finishing.
That pattern is stunning.
And it gets so small in the center. And if you hold like one of the earlier 5110 Paddock World times, if you see them in person, the center of that guilloche gets so fine and so small, it almost like plays a trick on your eyes. It disappears, and it's amazing. And then you flip this over, and it's just like a AP open work concept kind of look going on in the back. And it's just like a duality of, oh, it's amazing. It's Art Deco, and then it's like ultra modern but high complication on the back. It's crazy.
7 new patents in this watch.
Yeah.
7. That's pretty incredible. I would love to hear it because I've never really heard a square gong before. And I wonder if that changes the resonance.
It
like
might.
Having a hard angle on it versus having a round circle. Like if that caused them greater challenges in terms of like tuning that and making it sound good.
It's
or if
possible.
If it didn't matter. I don't know because I know sound, but I don't know engineering. And so I don't know how that would change things.
They've had the minute repeater in a reversal before. I've seen videos of it. They don't sound amazing. This is a pretty new caliber here with a lot of changes. I would wonder if they've improved it. But also, like, guys, you got to go to their website, check out their sort of their page for this watch. They have like a 4.5-minute video showing the inside and like really all of the angles and stuff. And looking at the little hammers move, it's crazy. This is a crazy watch.
All right, cool. You've given me something to do tonight once everybody else has gone to sleep. I will watch that. Thank you. I do really like that. I wish they'd put a dial like that on like a time-only one.
That's what I mean.
And make it accessible.
They're saving
that
it
would
for
be incredible.
high
But they never do. They always do their best dials on their absolute best watches. I want to skip ahead. I'm wondering if we could actually skip ahead and hit the enamel painted watches, and then maybe we'll move on to our recap and finish with that for the last 10 minutes. We're going to have to skip 2 absolutely incredible reversos that were also offered, but I think I'm just talking too much. And I wanted to talk about these because I think when Jaeger does this, and they are the amount of work and artistry that goes into something like this, because you have not only this incredible hand-painted scene on the back, which is obviously done on a scale that is so incredibly tiny. I have no idea how they get these details in there. But then you also have a beautiful Grand Fu enamel dial that's, you know, they do that enamel over top of a hand-engraved guilloche, and it's like, holy cow, man. This thing is it from start to finish. Each of these has a different pattern and a different color. And then each of the scenes on the back comes from the Shinamane. What do you think? Is that close? I don't know how to pronounce that word, but that's my guess. The Shinamane, which is an ancient book on polo. And the Reverso being a watch that was born out of the necessity of polo players not wanting to break the glass on their watch and being able to flip it over. Jaeger went back to that and said, let's put some of the earliest known images of polo on the back of this watch, done in absolute breathtaking beauty on an incredible scale.
Right. Well, then you flip your watch over to the solid case back, and then you risk breaking your incredibly...
I don't think anybody's playing polo with that.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I think I'd rather
anybody's playing
break the
polo
front of
with
the
that.
watch than the back of the watch.
Each
in that
image
case.
apparently takes more than 100 hours of work. And they are doing, it is like a cloisonne, and then they're also doing like the gold leaf and gold rings around things and everything. And it looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Somebody once asked me how rare these hand-painted reversos are, and I can tell you that working here for almost 10 years now, I have never seen one in person, ever. And we see a lot of really cool stuff, and I've never seen one of these. And I would love to actually get my hands on one. I love the ones that have famous works of art on the back. They just look absolutely incredible. The dials are also stunning. It's Jaeger at its absolute best.
Yeah, Cartier cannot touch that.
So we're going to roll into our recap now and I'm going to talk about some of my favorites from the week. Emerson, because we prepared the B-roll ahead of time, you are going to be foisted into Justin's.
I'll have to defend
watches.
Justin's. Okay.
And I'd be interested to see what you think of Justin's picks. He's not here to defend himself. Too bad, so sad.
I usually agree with him.
And you'll have to see what you think. So, let's roll into our most surprising releases. And Justin picked the Zenith GFJ, which we spoke about at length when we did our show on Zenith. I think this was the Tuesday night show, the first show we did. And he actually swayed me on this watch, because once I learned about it, I was absolutely blown away. Do you know about this? Did you see it?
I found the press page for this, and it was a lengthy document.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite grasp it at 4 p.m. on a Friday, to be honest. But it looks interesting.
I love that you had that reaction, because I scrolled right by this watch. But when I learned the backstory about it and how this was Zenith before the El Primero. This was their caliber that was, their absolute best thing they made before they made the El Primero. And they've re-released it now with beautiful appointments of guilloche on the dial, and it's mimicked on the engraving in the back. They have stone in the middle, lapis and turquoise and things, and it's absolutely stunning. It is absolutely stunning. It is very cool. It is surprising from Zenith. I never saw it coming. My most surprising was the 6196P. And I mentioned this to Justin on our Paddock show, and he didn't agree with me, but I really think that I never saw this coming. I never saw Paddock saying, let's redo the 5196 with the better movement and a salmon dial in a platinum case. I don't think anybody saw this coming, because I never saw anybody say, oh, they're going to make a Calatrava with a platinum dial. So to me, this was super surprising and ultimately super exciting.
Yeah, we had a little discussion about this earlier, and I mean, I can't say when I was trying to predict what might be released by X brand, I was not thinking about what Calatrava might be released. And while it's like, I guess it's unexpected, but I'm not shocked. I think the 5196 desperately needed to be updated with the newer movement.
I've wanted something like this from Paddock for a long, long time.
Yeah, and I think they are feeling the pressure of the other Swiss brands and Lange in terms of their time-only manual wind Calatrava-esque options. So I think they were feeling a little pressure there. And platinum and salmon is a common combination, but we don't really see it on the Calatrava.
When's the last time you saw it on a time only? I love this watch. I am absolutely smitten. I am sad that it is $47,000 or something like that. It's the better part of $50K, and it's not going to get any cheaper on the secondary market, I don't think.
No.
I don't see that being a discount watch, sadly, but I adore it. I think it is very surprising. Do you have one you want to add, even though we can't put it up on the screen, for most surprising?
Most surprising? Nothing that really shocked me to my core. The Land Dweller was a little surprising.
Oh, very much so.
But there were teases of it, and everyone's like, oh, bring back the oyster quartz. So, like, I guess there's a little bit of a seed planted.
I didn't hear a lot of that bring back the oyster quartz, so that's interesting.
You don't follow the same weird vintage people on Instagram that I do, so
that's
maybe you don't see it.
Probably true. So that is interesting, but I was blown away. When I saw the leaks, I thought it was fake.
Yeah.
I thought it was fake.
They don't mess around, Rolex.
So then for best in show, I had picked the Longa Perpetual Calendar Repeater because I thought everything that they did with this, you know, from the black enamel dial to this caliber with like a silent flywheel system, which I think is kind of cool, to making it super duper wearable at like 40 mil and not very thick. Like, this is everything you could want in. It's super stealthy, it's super luxury, it's super complicated. It's like everything all in one package, and it just looks so slick. The Darth date window, you know, the white text on the black to go with that black enamel. Look at that moon phase disc. I mean, this thing is 10 out of 10. It's also, you know, 720,000 out of 10 on the price there. But it's a stunner. And I just think that's how you do a grand comp. Yep. That's really cool. That goes toe-to-toe with Patek, in my opinion.
I would agree. I think this is excellent. Obviously unattainable for most of us, but I think you have these kind of flagship high comp pieces, and that sets the tone for what trickles down to the rest of our more kind of pedestrian models from these brands that we can even dream of.
Exactly.
So.
I love that they brought back the like Langmatic perpetual aesthetic because I thought that was phenomenal. I love the Romans, everything about it. Anyway, speaking of unattainable, Justin's choice was the VC Solaria, the most complicated watch in the world.
Yeah, I appreciate the technical achievement here for sure, and I'm happy to see Vacheron really putting in the work because they've always been like that 3 spot on the Holy Trinity brand list for a long time, at least in my opinion, and this is just...
And I would have put them there too, and I have to admit that my opinion of them after this show has changed.
Me too.
I am now... Vacheron has gone up a rung on the ladder, in my opinion. Not just from this thing, because this thing obviously is incredible, but it's also like a piece unique. It's, you know, it basically... It exists, but it doesn't, because no mortal person will ever encounter this watch.
It's a Halo watch.
It's a Halo watch. And I applaud them for doing it. But I think even the releases that they did, the 270th anniversary pieces and stuff, are absolutely stunning. I think they treated everything really well. I really like what they came out with. I like the way they've been treating their current lines in terms of the updates to the overseas. So new respect for VC all around.
Yeah, I generally agree. The technical aspect, the work they're putting in, it's definitely admirable.
Yeah.
The aesthetics don't really appeal to me that much, to be honest. They're kind of a little too, maybe just too modern and a little bit kind of cold and sterile. Whereas even Patek these days, which isn't as romantic as their older models, but they're still like just a little, you know, like the font, it's kind of sterile.
Interesting.
But, yeah, I don't know how to describe it.
I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. It has a very different feel. Even the standard Patrimony, standard Traditionnel,
like
they have a different
whenever I talk to someone about Vacheron, it's like I always feel like I'm trying to make an argument like this is such a good watch technically. Like I feel like I have to defend them. But it is great.
You don't have to defend that. That's incredible. So what's your best in show?
I really think it's that reverso minute repeater. Yeah, for me, that's what really pulled me.
I'm not going to fight you.
Yeah.
I love a good reverso. Never had a complicated one, but I do love a good reverso. All right, and we're going to finish up with the release I'd spend my own money on. And Justin will be no surprise. I think we all know that he picked the Cartier Tank à Guichet. I'm not sure. Let's see the B-roll, because I'm not sure if he picked a standard one or if...
Oh, no, he had to pick this one.
He picked the wonky sucker.
Yep.
Right?
I'm totally...
Oh, no, we have the whole B-roll of the Guichet. I wish he was here to tell us which one he would actually take. I'm sure he would take the platinum, because we all know he's got the trust fund to pay for it.
Yep.
But, shame, he's not even here to defend himself. But... But for me, that yellow gold guichet on the green strap is absolutely one of the nicest things in the world. I love the brutalist nature of this watch. I love how austere it is. And I love how if you were wearing that, people would be like, what is up with that watch? And that would be the best part about it.
Yep, I agree. I think I would go with the funky one myself. And I don't know where the prices are. I know they're well into the 5 figures, and it's going to be very difficult to get them like the.
They're not
was.
limited though.
They're not.
Only the wonky oblique one is limited.
Well, that's
the
the
other
best
ones
one.
are actually going to be standard production, but they are privé, so there's not going to be tens of thousands of them out there.
No.
For me, for the first time ever, I have actually picked a Moser, which is quite the surprise. But I can't get over pink opal and Burmese jade and a big, beautiful tourbillon at 6 o'clock. This is just the most visually appealing watch I have seen in a long time. I wish they did that green chapter ring like that on the time onlys, because then I could, save myself a lot of money. But I had to pick the Turby because that like bullseye kind of feel to it, and then the Turby at 6, I'm blown away by this watch. I love that color combination. I love that it feels kind of edgy and kind of 60s, and I really like it. Those pastels like that, they're very like 50s, 60s kind of thing.
But
it's super cool.
You would spend your own money on this?
Provided I had the means, I would.
Do you know what the price is? I don't know what it is.
It's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It's not
and
cheap.
you would take
It's
this.
a tourbillon.
You would take this over one of the Reverso complications?
I would.
No, you're just...
I would really enjoy wearing that watch. I'm not just trying to be
You're bluffing it.
argumentative.
No,
I'm not.
no.
I love that watch. I think it's incredible.
It's cool.
I think it's so good. I think it's the best thing I've seen from Moser in a long, long, long time.
That's
long
fair.
time.
That's
Keep your
fair.
streamliners. That's a watch.
Yeah, get the streamliners out of here.
That's a watch. So how about you? What are you spending your money
If
on?
I had to spend my own money, I think I would probably just get a Pistachio OP36. Call it a day.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did they do the pistachio in the 36, or is that
They
only
did.
the 41?
You can configure all kinds of combinations on Rolex's site.
Okay.
Yeah, and
All
it's
right.
not very exciting. I like the guichet as well.
But you skew more towards simple watches.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You do.
Simple.
I've never seen you wear a complication.
I tend to not pick them up.
Yeah.
I like a simple watch, for sure. Maybe I'm just a
I
simple
appreciate that.
guy.
I mean, I'm the same way, right? I own all time onlys, and
Well,
then one.
And your perpetual that you treat as a time only
That-
because you don't set it.
Yeah, you are correct.
Yeah.
Before that, the most complicated thing I ever owned was a GMT. So I mean, I also was the same way, and then got the chance to trade up in a big way and did it. But other than that, I agree with you. I'm mostly drawn towards time only, hence the tourbillon.
Time only, and that's why a minute repeater is my favorite complication, because
I
it
love
looks like
that.
a time only.
It looks like a sleeper, unless you know what that little slider or that button does. I love it.
I think we're at the end of our time, Rob.
Thank you. We are. Look at that.
Look
we
at
are
that.
done. Thank you, Emerson, for joining me.
Of course.
It's been a lot of fun having you on the show. Thank you to all of you, especially those of you who have joined us for all 4 days. This was a tremendous undertaking. We really enjoyed doing it for all of you. We enjoyed looking at these releases and sharing our thoughts. I think overall it's been a fantastic show. There were a lot of really beautiful things released. There were a lot of interesting things released. And I think it shows that the watch world is alive and kicking.
Yes, they're trying hard. They're putting out good stuff. I'm happy to see it too.
It was really good. So please do like and subscribe. We are going to be back with the Horological Happy Hour before you know it in a brand new studio. And we are looking forward to joining you again. Keep an eye on our pages for updates about that. And we will see you soon. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody.
Thank you, guys.